I got an email just a little while ago from Elizabeth Warren. And, not that I'm special. I mean, me and probably 2 or 3 million people who have made small donations to her campaign. I've made, donations of between $5 and $100 to, half a dozen of the Democratic candidates that I want to follow. It's basically the way that you follow a candidate. My $5 donation to Donald Trump back in 2016 has been paying off really well. I still get his emails every single day. And, he's begging for money like there's no tomorrow. It's pretty mind-boggling. But here's what Elizabeth Warren says. She says, Tom, we need a health care system that reflects our values. No American should ever die or go bankrupt because of health care costs, and no for-profit insurance company should be able to stop any American from getting the care they need. Health care is a human right, and that's why I'm fighting for Medicare for all. It's the only plan that gives everyone in America full coverage with the freedom to see any provider with no premiums, copays, or deductibles, no restrictions, no surprises, and no one going broke because they get sick. And then she points out that she's releasing her plan for Medicare for all, which she did today. She did this morning. It's being fact-checked and talked about all over the media. And she says, in fact, my plan won't raise middle-class taxes by 1 penny. In fact, my plan puts $11 trillion back in the pockets of American families by virtually eliminating their current premiums, deductibles, and copays. That's bigger than any tax cut in American history. To cover the cost, she says, we start by taking the money that employers are currently paying in the form of premiums to private insurance companies and have them pay it to Medicare itself instead. I'm happy with that, right? I'm providing, I pay for my health care. I mean, my business, this little business, the Thom Hartmann Program, it pays for my health care and Louisa's. She works on the show. It pays for Sean's health care. It pays for Nate's health care. Our full-time employees are all covered by our health care plan. So I'm already paying that as a small business, as an employer. And if that money needs to be redirected to Medicare, that's fine with me. In fact, I'd be very happy with that, particularly if it gets rid of copays, deductibles, and all that kind of crap that, all of us are having to deal with. She goes on to say, we make up the difference with targeted spending cuts, new taxes on giant corporations, Wall Street, and the richest 1%, and cracking down on tax evasion and fraud. And by the way, that tax evasion and fraud thing, that's not a small thing because of things that George W. Bush did and Donald Trump has done. Both of those presidents reduced funding for the Internal Revenue Service. So the IRS, over the last 20 years or so, has laid off thousands of auditors. And they're left now to the point where they have so few people able to do audits and the necessity of doing some minimum threshold number of audits that they've pretty much stopped auditing really rich people because it's so complex. I mean, it can take 6 months, a year, maybe even 2 years to fully audit the books of somebody like Donald Trump, with 800 or 600 shell companies and front companies and phony baloney companies and a few real companies and, all moving money back and forth in order to minimize taxes. It's just insanely complex. And of course, billionaires can afford to pay, for CPAs to do this kind of stuff. The IRS no longer can. And so there's an estimated $2 billion a year in tax fraud going on. And it may be higher than that. It may be hundreds of billions of dollars. Nobody knows for sure. So then she says, Tom, see it for yourself. Try our new calculator to see our plan for Medicare for all would mean to you. And there's a calculator on her ElizabethWarren.com website where you can actually plug that in. And then she tells a story about her dad's heart attack and how her family kind of went off the rails. And she said, I spent my career studying why hardworking middle-class families were going broke. For years, my research partners and I traveled across the country from bankruptcy courtroom to bankruptcy courtroom, talking directly with people who'd seen their lives turned upside down. And one of the biggest reasons for bankruptcy that we found? Medical problems. In 2007, my research found that the number one reason families were going broke was health care. And 3/4 of those who declared bankruptcy after an illness were people who already had health insurance. Between 2013 and 2016, the number one reason families went broke was still because of health care, even though 91.2% of Americans had health insurance in 2016. Families are getting crushed by health costs. But do you know who's doing great? Private health insurance companies. They're sucking billions of dollars in profits out of the system. Under Medicare for All, we'll rein in the corruption, waste, inefficiency, and corporate profiteering in our healthcare system, and we can pay for it without any new taxes for middle-class families. Existing federal and state spending on healthcare stays about the same. Businesses spending on healthcare stays about the same. Payments just go to Medicare instead of private insurers. And yeah, big corporations, Wall Street, and the top 1% pay their fair share. God bless her.